Yeah, we'll get started. So just as I just touched on, we'll do a little bit of an intro about myself and who Crafted are. Then we'll go into a bit of an overview of how product teams are being disrupted right now. And I will frame these all as opportunities. It can be a little bit daunting with AI kind of taking up parts of a design and product person's process, but we can definitely work alongside these tools to help get more work done more efficiently and more effectively. Then we'll go through some tools. Then we'll go through how you might champion AI. So if you work in a current business or a team, how you can become the advocate for using AI tools and efficiencies. Even if you work on your own as a freelancer, it's still going to be relevant. And then we'll just finish off on touching on some upcoming other webinars that we've got planned. So what I'll do before we get started, I'd love to hear in the chat everyone's kind of view or what tools they're using right now around AI. So just start putting in the chat if you're using any tools in particular. It's really interesting to understand where everyone's at with their workflows. We'll go through some today, but yeah, feel free to drop things in the chat. Let everyone else see what kind of tools you've been using. And that's just a good starter. We'll also have a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions around this topic, we'll have 5-10 minutes at the end to go through those questions. Just pop them in the chat channel and we'll go through as many as we can. Great. So just a really high level, my background, if you haven't joined one of our webinars before, so I've worked in the design industry for about 14 years now. I've worked across a range of different businesses from large corporates to agencies, and most recently the last 6 or 7 years at scale-ups and startups. So running the design teams at these businesses, hiring designers, and running these sort of marketplaces and fintech products. That's sort of led me to create Crafted UX with some other design leaders, where we were really focusing on building industry validated insights in a very noisy space that's based on all of our experiences working on these products across different industries and applying UX strategies and frameworks that are actually used in industry. So we try and really focus on the practical side of things instead of just teaching the full textbook that isn't actually applied in industry when you're working in product and tech teams. So yeah, we focus on courses. We run boot camps, day boot camps, as well as longer form ones. We also focus a lot on career guidance. So for someone that is interested in coaching or looking for some guidance on where they want to get in their career, we try and help designers with that to get to your goal with some practical frameworks and guidelines. And then yeah, if you're looking to get into your first role or move up to more senior positions, that's something that we help designers with previously. So if you're interested, just check out our website on that. We're going to dive now into AI and products. So there could be a range of experience on this call. So I'm going to start right at the beginning. So AI is fundamentally transforming how products, tech, and businesses teams operate right now. It's been going on, I guess, with these tools for the last couple of years, but in the last 6 months, there's been a massive shift in the availability of these tools, the quality of them, and then the uptake across different teams and businesses. So it's really helping teams move faster, make smarter decisions, and work more efficiently. And just some of the data from some surveys out there right now. So around 70% of design teams are already using AI tools. So if you're not using one of these tools, you're already on the back foot, but that's okay. There's still much time to learn and adapt. Around 50% of businesses are using AI as copywriting or UX microcopy. So what we're seeing right now is there's a reduction in kind of copywriter roles, and that's being absorbed into the product designer role. Rightly or wrongly, I think you can get to a certain level with using ChatGPT and other tools like that for copy, but it still requires a lot of context and knowledge, which a copywriter has through years of experience. So there's definitely kind of helps speed up the process, but still need that oversight. Around 43% are using AI for usability testing summaries. So before we've been running sessions, going through the transcripts, summarizing the themes. These tools are really helping fast forward that in seconds, which means we can do more testing and more validation at a higher quality level. And then the last one's around 75% teams are already synthesizing research, documentation, and prototyping using AI tools. So fairly high uptakes across all different areas of the process from ideation to delivery. So that's a bit of a status check of the industry and how that goes across different teams. So designers and product managers and also developers have very high uptake right now of these tools. They're all slightly different in different contexts. But for designers specifically, you're looking at around UI generation. So how can we create some initial improvements on landing pages, initial sort of ideations in that early phase of discovery. Then there's visuals around how you can create new images, if it's avatars, if it's certain scenes that you want to create, that can now be done through tools like Midjourney and Runway. And then we already touched on content help, and we'll go into more of these tools throughout the session today. Rapid prototyping is a really exciting one that you can do on Figma AI, you can do on Lovable, which has kind of transformed the time it takes to do a prototype now and can create that in seconds, which is really powerful as a designer and also a team trying to move through those cycles quicker. So what will be happening for those late adopters? So the general trends we're seeing right now is that if you're not taking up AI, you're going to ship slower. Probably going to spend more time on low impact work. So writing out, let's say, product feature documents, writing user stories, understanding all those different variants as a designer. So if you're creating a new sign-up flow to purchase, let's say, some trainers from a sports store, having to think about all those edge cases around when there's, let's just say there's a payment issue, let's say there's nothing in stock, let's say they've already purchased that item recently, and all those other edge cases that you have to create designs for and engineering logic. They all can be automated to a certain degree now. So what that means is you can spend more time on the larger scale strategic projects in businesses, which is good news for most of the team. So that's something that's the positive, I guess, of us going through. The manual work can be taken up by AI for the first and 20% of projects. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail practically as we go through today. So what the AI is kind of transforming around businesses as a whole is it's essentially pushing efficiency and return on investment. It's helping speed up those development processes and cycles. So if maybe previously it took 4 weeks to create a feature and deploy it, it's now taking, I think on average, around 25% less due to those speeding up of the discovery and also the design engineering phases. It's really empowering PMs and designers to focus more on strategy, as I mentioned. And it's becoming more of a kind of a hybrid team where instead of going to your teammates for initial feedback on ideas or concepts or research, you're kind of using AI as this side tool. So maybe collaboration's happening in a different way, but as long as you're sharing and communicating those insights, it's still of high quality and useful for the team. So we'll go into some themes that are a bit more specific around disruption in tech and how they're affecting, if you are a designer, if you are a researcher, if you're a product manager, these will definitely apply to you. So the first one's around how discovery is changing. So that the research phase of a project that normally takes a sizable amount of time. The next one is around prototyping. Then we'll go into a little bit around personalized experiences. So automating those personalized views and segmentation. Before going into some collaboration and feedback loops once the product's actually released. So we've got examples to go through for each of these of how, again, you could change your workflow tomorrow and become even more efficient and informed using AI. So the first one's around discovery and prioritization. So what's it AI is allowing us to do is have a bit more driven roadmaps that are prioritized. And this is due to obviously getting a lot of data back from AI tools and prompts. If you're doing some initial research, let's say you want to understand if there's any competitors in a new market, if you're releasing a new fitness app, you can use certain prompts in ChatGPT to say, what's the feature benchmark for this type of application? What's the market size? What's the most valued feature? What's the most time intensive feature to build? There's many different prompts that you can go through, and we've got some sort of resources and summary sheets that I'll share with you at the end to help you with these prompts and do it in an efficient way. So tools that you can do this with is product boards, a great one to help synthesize a large amount of user feedback. You can use ChatGPT to draft and refine product requirements. That's something that's normally very time intensive. If you have a new feature you want to build, You come up with those use cases around those and input things from surveys or data, any data sort of metrics you have, and then it can help summarize those. So it can cut down your discovery timelines by up to 50%, and then it helps reflect that on roadmaps as well and prioritize those user needs. So over time, you should be learning more and more through the inputs you're giving into your AI. And if you have your own personal login, it can then come again more specific and personalized. The next tool theme is around design and prototyping. So this one is probably the most, I guess, impactful for designers, I think in a very positive way. So traditionally, we've been using Figma prototyping, creating all the different screens and edge cases, which you have to manually tie together to create a prototype that functions like an actual product to put in front of users. And now we can kind of shift that down from days to probably I would say minutes to create those interactions, which is very exciting. But we'll go through some examples of that shortly as well. So yeah, there's different tools, AI assistants with layout generation. If it's marketing assets that you can see on this image on the right, that's something that can be created in Figma now in the new Figma Buzz tool. You can also use tools like UIizard, which is something that can create wireframes or sketches into fully fledged designs. So you can see on the right-hand side that's just been picked up from that wireframe. So going from that initial rough sketch and concept to mid-fidelity is becoming a lot easier. And again, helping speed up that design process. This is just a quick example of UIizard. If you haven't used this tool, this just shows a very high summary of how you can come in, upload your sketches. It could be also user flows that you've done, and then it can transform those into UI or mid-fidelity UI. And this has been around for a little bit of time, but the accuracy is becoming better and better. And again, it's going to help designers move forward at a quicker rate, but also at a high quality rate. So some other videos in here you can have a look through post-session, but they just go into more details of the tools. The next one's around personalized user experiences. So this is also quite impactful in how it will change I guess, the complexity of what we're building. So if we're creating any kind of product, any kind of onboarding, if you can personalize that experience, it is factual that will increase the conversion rates of the flows you're creating. So if you have user A who is, let's say, someone who is downloading a fitness app and their goal is to run a marathon, and user B, someone is looking to build muscle and do strength training. They're both going to want to have very different onboarding journeys and have a plan that's created for them that's personalized. So just by segmenting those and personalizing the flow and the features they will see, it's going to most likely improve the uptake of that user engaging, paying for a subscription, and so on. So that's essentially what hyper-personalization is. AI can help us create that a lot quicker than we did before. And some examples. So if you've used Duolingo, which is an app to help learn new languages, they use AI models to adapt learning paths. So based on the feedback you're given through narration and how you're sort of responding, it will then change the content you're seeing next. So it's very hyper personalized. Spotify does it with your daily mixes and so on. And other tools are more and more incorporating that as you go. So this is really to help your retention and conversion. The last two are around development and collaborations. This one's more around design to dev. So this is helping create more thorough product specs. So new features you're designing, how does it behave? This would traditionally be a conversation between design and dev. Now we can use Figma and ChatGPT and other tools to kind of help create those different use cases and the logic behind it. There's also tools for engineers out there, things like GitHub Copilot, which helps again suggest real-time improvements. Things like Cursor is AI assistant. So all of these are helping with handoffs to engineers and saving time, helping them pick up or reduce the amount of bugs that are being released, which again gets them focused on more strategic builds and time with the product team. So that's all benefits for us all around. The last one is just on continuous feedback and learning. So we all love to be informed from the features we're designing. Once we release them, more often than not, there's not enough time to go back and improve them. So what we really want to be smart about and what top designers do is try and push for that feedback loop and that cycle. So what's that extra 10% that we can improve for the next release? So you could set up a survey in the product. You could set up some analytics for looking at their behavior. What AI is allowing us to do here is on tools that already exist, like Full Story. So you can basically record the sessions of a user. So you can see them moving around the product. It can highlight the heat maps of where they're moving, where they might be clicking, and maybe errors are occurring. And there's other ones that you can integrate surveys and so on. So this is going to lead to quicker iterations and higher turnaround of improvements. That again is automated, so it actually gets seen to and prioritized into the roadmap. So that's something we're already started doing at Brightbook and other companies that's helped improve the quality of the product overall. So we've gone through some themes, and now we're going to jump into some demos of specifically some products that you can start using that will hopefully save you time, improve the quality of your work, and also just help build your awareness of the quality and almost the restrictions of AI right now and how you can kind of use it to your advantage and use it to help inform your other team members. So this is the double diamond. You're all probably aware of this process that we go through as designers or creators. We have a problem that we want to solve. We do some research to discover it. We kind of confine the research once we find the real problem that's causing frustration. We'll develop some designs and then we'll deliver those when we build them with engineers. Traditionally, these are the tools that have been used probably up to about 8 months ago, I would say, that you would use Miro to do some workshopping with team members. You would use things like Dribble or Mobbin to get inspiration on other apps that are doing similar features. You'd use Zoom to run your user research, and you'd use Figma as your number one tool to create your designs, do your prototyping, and then probably summarize them to some sort of slide deck in slides or PowerPoint. How that has changed is quite phenomenal in a time of the last 6 to 8 months. So this is more about the landscape we see right now and going through that process and the tools that are available to help, again, improve your workflow and go into the detail a lot more in areas that you might not have had time for previously. So we'll go into some of these in more detail, but in discovery phase, there's tools where you can create instant personas. So you know the user you're designing for based on data from surveys, it can be pulled in and created instantly. You can use tools like Lovable for quick prototypes that are going straight from prompt to code. And then there's tools around Google Notebook, which is a way that you can summarize your user insights, and I'll go through that shortly. You can create podcasts from nothing essentially, or mind maps just from the transcripts from the interviews. And then as we go into the development phase, you'll see a lot of different tools here. It's very competitive right now, and there's a lot of free tools of high quality out there. So if it is Figma Make, if it is UI Wizard, if it is mind maps using Whimsical, there's so many different tools to help you develop those concepts a lot quicker and a lot more effectively than what we'd manually do before. So we're going to go through 4 tools in detail right now. We're going to go through, there's about 12 that we go through in the course with Crafted, but these are probably the most useful ones that you'd use in the day-to-day process for a designer. So the first one's ChatGPT. We're all pretty aware of that, but how you use ChatGPT and the prompts to get to really good outputs. Next one's Notebook LM. So this is a Google AI product that's around improving summarizing your research. Whimsical is around user flows and mind maps, so that kind of architecture stage of the designer. And Figma Make and Lovable are around prototype ready, code ready solutions that you can create from just prompts. So the first one we'll go through today, and a live example from a brief, is ChatGPT. So let's just say the brief was to improve and optimize the click-to-pay conversion if you wanted to purchase this pair of trainers from the Nike store. So let's just say the goal for the project was to increase click-to-pay from 20 to 28% and increase the average order size. So that's your initial goal. Normally, you would go to your product team, you'd discuss this, you'd run some workshops, you'd get some initial feedback, you'd move forward with some early research and designs. What you can now do with ChatGPT is move that forward 10x from the get-go. So what I would then recommend, and what again teams are doing right now and what they've shared with us, is you can go to ChatGPT, you can write your first prompt, which is something around, can you suggest ways to help optimize the click-to-pay conversion for purchasing a new pair of trainers on an e-commerce site? So the list of 10 suggestions around how that could be improved. So streamlining the flow to adding a guest checkout, to reduce the number of steps, to adding a progress indicator, to adding multiple payment options. So all really useful suggestions, but they're quite broad to begin with. So how might you look to restrain the suggestions it's giving you? Excuse me. So the prompt two could be, hey, look, we've got an existing site live. Let's paste that link in on that exact page and say, can you suggest the above improvements for this specific page? So I've done that for that Nike page that we saw a second ago. And it's giving more specific suggestions around improving and adding things like a mini shopping cart, the guest checkout prompts throughout, how you can add trust signals throughout that payment journey. So again, specifying in more detail what you could add. But we can go even further from there. So one thing is it's summarizing that into a table, which you can share with your team. It can summarize that back to the UX principle around improving trust or improving urgency, or let's just say things around reassurance. Excuse me. And prompt three would be asking ChatGPT what recommendation will likely have the highest impact. So obviously this is just based on the data of what's been input into ChatGPT, but it's becoming smarter and smarter over time. And this is where you can get some numbers behind the suggestion. So it's added that the guest checkout would be the most promising, way to improve conversion. It's saying down here that it can help reduce abandonment by 10 to 30%. So our goal was to increase by 8%. So that's already in the right range. And then it goes down into showcasing how you might implement that and how you might do that step by step. So it's three quick prompts that you've got to a really clear output, which you can then share with your team that has some thinking behind it. And you could even start going into your initial designs and wireframes from there. So that kind of approach is something that's going to help you get, again, from that discovery phase a lot quicker. The next example is Notebook LM, which is actually my favorite tool I'm started to use in the last couple of months. So this is around research. So if you're someone that conducts research or works with researchers, this is one that you definitely want to start sharing. So the context is you're on 8 user interviews. You want to try and understand what the theme is of those interviews. And let's just say you're looking to build out a new feature on a product that you set up events. So let's just say it's similar to Meetup. The goal is to increase the number of events that are set up and increase the retention of those users. So let's say you've run the test through Zoom, you spoke to 8 different people, you've got the transcripts, and you really want to spend some time summarizing what this all means, and what the next steps are. So you share that into Notebook LM. So it's a completely free tool that you can go and use as of now. So you put that into there, it creates you a summary around certain key topics, which you can then prompt further if you want to go in a slightly different direction or go into more detail. You can then, from that summary, create a mind map. You can create a podcast, which is very impressive and quite detailed. So different ways of consuming this information is really interesting in teams right now. So some people like audio, some people like video, some people like to just read through a summary, some people would like to have a meeting and discuss. So it gives you the chance to basically share what's best for the business and your team. And then the output of this essentially is you can create mind maps that are fully interactive, that have all of those insights paired to them. So something that's a living, breathing research hub for that topic. And then you can also create podcasts of normally up to about 10 minutes, but the quality is pretty high. So again, I would encourage you all to have a play around with these tools, input some transcripts, or if you don't have them, you can just play around with some dummy data and you'll see the quality of the output. But this is really transformative for researchers, designers, how you can go from just having those interviews to summarizing them in saving, let's just say 80% of the time it took before to do that process, which means you can focus on doing further research or going in other directions a lot more. This is just a quick demo of Notebook LM. So I'll speed it up a little bit, but you should hopefully get the gist of the tool. So you go in, you upload your sources, as I mentioned. They can be in varying different formats. Again, you can prompt it to add extra information or go into a different direction if you want to. You can have a higher summary, exec summary, or go into the detail depending on what your goal is. So So it's similar to ChatGPT in that sense of prompts. And then when it comes to exporting, you can select many different formats, as you can see there. Yeah, it's a great tool, and one that you should definitely go check out if you haven't already. The next one's around whimsical AI. So again, for designers, this is going to be really relevant for your process. So the context for this brief is, let's say you wanted to create a new onboarding feature for a new finance banking app. So you've got some money that you want to invest. You're building out this new startup that wants essentially an onboarding flow for logging into and creating an account on this banking app. So success metric is number of accounts created, reducing bounce rate, so people stopping on that flow, maybe the number or the percentage of data that you're getting them to input. The higher, the better for that customer, for example. So you've done a little bit of initial research. You've started creating some conversations with your product team. You've started sketching out maybe some initial flows or using Miro or Figma to do that. And that's where whimsical AI is kind of helping transform that process. So before you might have used FigJam, let's say for this flow chart on the left. So every single step that's made, a decision that's made when you're onboarding a user. This takes a lot of time, takes a lot of thought. And this is something that, again, we can help supercharge. And the right-hand side is just a Miro example. So with Whimsical, you can, again, prompt-based, select flowchart or mind map, whatever the format is you want. So for this example, I've done a flowchart. I've asked it to create me a sign-up flow for a finance banking app for new investments. It's created that within 2 to 3 seconds of that decision matrix and flow that's going to be needed. This is something that you chat through with engineers and product managers to make sure you covered all those bases. So this is helping save a lot of time up front again. And then what you can also do is create a technical sequence. So if you select the sequence diagram here, what it will allow you to do is set up all those different calls it has to do from a technical perspective to the server, to the database, and to the app. So again, it helps advance this conversation with engineers and gets you kind of discussing that up front, which is great because if you identify any things up front, it's going to save you time developing those, design those edge cases later down the line. So yeah, around data storage, around security of information being held, these are things that are great to discuss early with from a technical perspective, which means less rework later down the line. So another one that they've actually updated to Miro AI recently. So similar-ish, but in more detail. So if you log into Miro, which again is a free collaboration tool if you haven't used it, they've got an AI section. This is based on the diagram and mind mapping. So I've just put in a prompt again to create me an onboarding flow for a banking app, which is done on the right-hand side. It's shown them in very much a high fidelity wireframe, which I could then take straight into doing some user testing. Or again, it just helps me talk through the current content, the current specification requirements with the product manager and engineers. And again, this is done in seconds. So you'll have to take this into Figma at a later point, but that first stage of discovery and feedback is sped up so much that it's going to help you move on a lot faster. More feedback loops, more alignment, which is the positive for us. And probably one of the most exciting ones is Figma Make. So I'm going to go through Figma Make, which is a fully prototyping tool. You may have seen this launch earlier in the year. So it came out maybe 2-3 months ago. Figma released their annual conference, which they do every year. They released 4 different tools, Figma Make being probably the standout AI tool. So the brief here that I'll go through is, let's just say you want to create an events timeline for a wedding planning app. And the goal is to get them retained after a month, so to keep them around. So you might have started chatting to ChatGPT to discuss some initial ideas or concepts to create a wedding timeline or a journey. You might start putting some inputs into Figma to get some ideas going. So the first prompt I put into Figma Make here is, can you create a wedding timeline feature to help couples planning their wedding and including milestones at each stage of the way? So this takes probably about 3 or 4 minutes to go through, give you feedback of the feature breakdown it's thinking of, which again, you can give feedback to and iterate on before you ask it to generate a coded solution. So in this case, it's created me a sort of step 1 of this wedding timeline, which I can show you a kind of a live demo here. So what it has is it's created me a progress overview. It's created me different milestones that are interactive that can be ticked off. and that updates the progress. It's given suggestions of what those timeline actions are, which is really useful in discussions with the team if we want to try and organize that content. And it's got a congratulations sort of state at the end. But it is missing a few things at this point. So if I wanted to then prompt it further, excuse me, and ask if it can add some editing functionality. So if I wanted to change one of the tasks and save it or cancel it and delete it, can you please add that in? So once I've added that as a suggestion, I can now go into these tasks and I can save and edit and change these. So it's adding additional functionality based on the prompts I've put in. And this is done within the space of 5 to 10 minutes. So it's by no means fully fledged final designs. It hasn't applied the design guidelines of the company, but it's helped get that conversation going. It's helped understand how you might break down that content, the UX of it, and that's the benefits of it at this stage. There's some other examples that I go through on a product called Lovable. So this is again a very similar tool from prompt to prototype. But it's probably a little bit more advanced than Figma right now. But you can create a free account and go play around with this straight away. What this has is a really effective tool called chat. So at the bottom right-hand side here, you've got this chat area. So one is a prompt, and a chat is basically a conversation between you and the AI of how you might improve or update what you're discussing. So it's only counts as an input once you press kind of send. The chat is just really conversation back and forth to help progress your thinking. So that's a really useful mode to go through, as again, I've applied the same question here around creating an onboarding app for a banking product. So the top version you can see there is what it's created me from scratch. Excuse me. And then the bottom version, after I prompted it further to add in a portfolio dashboard, is what it's then shared with me. So it's gone to create a new feature based on my feedback of how you might help engage users further. So it suggested adding a dashboard, which is a very solid suggestion. What this tool can also do is give really fast feedback cycles. So if you picture, let's say, life before AI, when you might run a workshop with stakeholders who are in, let's just say there's a business stakeholder, there's a product manager, there's a researcher, an engineer, and maybe there's a product expert. So you're having discussions, you're putting your sticky notes down, you're coming up with ideas. How this can change moving forward is you can open up tools like Lovable and Figma Make. You can ask each person to put in prompts and create their own concepts and essentially talk about them within the space of 5 to 10 minutes. So you're kind of supercharging that initial stage. You're going past those kind of UX and problem statement parts. We should still definitely go through them, but again, if you want to create something faster, it's now able to do that. So the bottom example here is that I've just put in the prompt to say, can you help me gamify this dashboard? So it's added in levels, it's added in streaks, it's added in kind of time-based incentives, which is, again, just a really interesting way to visualize where we could take this dashboard and that concept. The next sort of theme is around transforming your prototyping. So I touched on it earlier around how it can help save many days in what was originally this top right example. So you create your screens, you create the variations, you have to create all the links separately of a functioning prototype. Updating that. So yeah, this example here is around, let's say, completing the prototyping stage in a much more efficient way. So using the same tool below, I've asked it to create a end-to-end onboarding flow for creating a banking account, essentially. So on the bottom, you can see here, it's created me a 4 or 5-step flow, again in seconds with initial content created, which again has helped really speed up the initial flow. So I'll give an example here in Lovable. So my first prompt was around setting up this flow. You have to put in certain information, but it's created, again, a certain framework for it, and it's given me information on those. And then the second one was around the portfolio that I was just showing you earlier. You can see how that kind of content is already interactive and being brought to life and could be exported straight away to code if you wanted to. What there is limitations for is then taking this back into Figma to doing some edits on, and that's where the tools have limitations. So if you do want to edit that kind of coded creation, you can't do that right now. So you have to kind of jump back into Figma. But it's looking like that the tools will allow more exporting to Figma files in the future. So that's something that you can adopt as well in your flow. So the last one's just about user flows. So again, you can import things like your sketches and user flows into these tools to create the kind of onboarding journey as I just mentioned. So for Lovable, I imported this user flow, which I created on Whimsical, that previous tool, about creating an account, setting it up, and being ready to invest. And then it's applied that straight to the product. It's created 6 different steps for that. And again, it's fast forwarded that initial ideation phase to create that core flow. You can take that straight into user testing, get some feedback on the content, and then iterate from there. But that's really helping speed up that flow, and the accuracy is also pretty good from the experience that I've had and other teams that I've been working with. So yeah, try that one out. It's a really powerful tool. It will help that prototyping phase and create more and more breadth as well to get some validation. So that's kind of gone over the tools that are available, and that was just 4 of the many that exist today. There's probably 20, 30 plus out there that could be useful in your design or research workflow. We go through more of these in detail in our UX strategy course at Crafted if you're interested in learning more, and other use cases and prompts with those. We've also got some more content in here and different ways that you can use these tools across different tasks that you're doing, which you can find afterwards in the deck. So I'm going to go now on to championing AI. So if you're working in a business right now, or you're a part of a team, or even if you're a freelancer on your own, you can start to think about how you can set up processes, set up tools and workflows to bring AI into your day-to-day. And there's different ways that you can kind of create those. So one is if you are kind of value-based and looking to be an AI champion, you want to think about the practical and useful application of AI. So is it just around content creation? Do you want to kind of replicate someone's role or add to it as a question across the business? Do you want to help empower your team? Is there kind of like an AI lead that you want to have in each of the team, or maybe that's yourself that kind of comes up with suggestions on how to improve flows or solve problems that you're facing? There's definitely a question around ethical and human-centered AI. So how do you remove biases? How do you challenge what it's suggesting? Because more often than not, you can have some errors. I think they call it, forget the name, hallucination, I think they call is the term for it, when it creates something that's not real. And you really have to go back and validate the question you're asking. So it's important to have some setup of rules there. Start small, so start about the small processes if it's validating your copy, and then maybe if you want to have larger workflows like prototyping that I've gone through today, that's something that comes later on. And then how can you stay connected with other communities and AI, other companies, going to talks like this, and also trying out other tools, podcasts and so on. It's something that's really important to stay on top of the tools. And if you're applying that as now a strategy, so that's kind of the values that I've put behind being an AI champion, or ones that we've seen work across businesses. But now is more of a strategy across a business of, let's say, 50, hundreds, thousands of employees. You're going to need a few pillars to kind of think about to implement it. So the first one's around the ownership or the governance. So what's that kind of framework to setting up AI leads, to mitigating risk? How do you also handle the data? So you're putting a lot of sensitive information, maybe from your business, into ChatGPT. How do you protect that? How do you kind of limit what actually goes into the model that you're sharing? So some rules around that is really important as time goes on, because once it's in the model, it's not going to be coming back out. Then what are the high leverage use cases? So what's let's say the top 3 or 5 most valuable workflows that's going to work for a designer, that might work for someone in customer success, that might work for a sales agent. How can we save as many people in the business time if it is using certain prompt sheets, if it is helping do research, if it is transcribing calls and theming things, identifying those high impact use cases is important. Then how do you apply them to the business? So how do you try and drive that behavioral change? This normally comes from within teams and also from the top down, but wherever you show that kind of process and application and you shout about it and share it in channels, that's going to help it come to life. And then the last one's around adoption and culture. So how can you actually celebrate the use of AI if that's something that's important? If it's around actually putting it into performance reviews and asking people if they've used AI, how they've used it, how they've shared with their team, what's the benefits of doing that, how you add it to a sort of document hub or a knowledge hub for new joiners to look at. And then, yeah, how do you incentivize longer term adoption? So maybe it's like a monthly wins where you share your new kind of way of using AI or new workflow across the business. So these are all examples that would help you set up a strategy in a business of whatever size right now. An example of one of those use cases is, let's just say you wanted to simplify and speed up our market competitor research process through using ChatGPT, using a series of prompts that are already set. So let's just say we operate in a couple of different markets as well as the UK. So we want to look at competitors. We also want to look at the size of the market. We want to look at the summary of maybe the product features and also the ratings, maybe in some sort of benchmarking, and also any pricing and tiering information about this product that we can sort of gather initially to understand an overview. And then the format, so how is it exported? Is it Google Slides? Is it PDF? Is it a podcast? What's the best format for yourself, your team? So this is all a script that you could create and then apply to a use case, times this by 10, 20. You've supercharged your way that your team can work. And again, you'll help you push through those use cases at a faster rate. Great. So we're just coming to the end of today's session. So if you have any questions around AI workflows, then start to think about those and add them to the chat. I'm just going to touch on a few things that are coming up with Crafted that might be relevant for you. So what we're hearing right now a lot from designers is the people that are quite unclear on career progression, or maybe things around their portfolio and case studies, or applying for roles, not hearing back from jobs and things like that. So we're trying to answer some of these, I guess, struggles with some of the services that we offer at Crafted. So our most popular one is around our Get Hired coaching series. So this follows 3 different sessions around understanding your goals, reviewing your portfolio and your CV, and going through sort of interview tips and strategies to help you land roles. We've got a couple of spaces left for July and August. Again, it's quite popular. But you have a look on our website, have a read through our reviews. If it's something that you're struggling with right now, then it's something that could help you. We normally see about 90% of designers find roles within 4 weeks after going through our series. Then we also have our upcoming events. So we've got one coming up in a few weeks on design systems. So how do you build out scalable design systems? It's one of the top demand skills right now that recruiters are looking for in designers. We also have one on data-driven design. So this also will be influenced by AI and some other tools that can be used. And then we have a few courses coming up next month and end of this month. So we've got bootcamp, and we also have a strategy course that you can sign up to. The last few spaces, we've got 20% off with that code. And then also, as I mentioned, the coaching sessions. So what you'll get access to after the session today is we'll send you over the recording, and you'll also get some cheat sheets around AI tools and workflows to start having a look at yourself. And that's something that you'll get access to after this session. And then we can finish off today with a short Q&A if there's any questions. So let me just open up the chat, and I'll give you guys a minute or two to add anything in there if you have any questions. Let me just stop sharing. So, and I'll just pop some links in the chat as well if it's useful. So that's if you're interested to have a look at any of our courses or coaching. And I'll start off with a question around AI that we get quite a lot. So a lot of designers are wondering how they should kind of change their skill set and kind of like profile if they think UX is going to be taken over by a lot of UI tools. Sorry, excuse me. So what I would say is that you should always position yourself as an AI-focused designer. And how you use the tools in your workflow, you shouldn't shy away from. You should show that positively in your interviews or discussions with your team. Really, it's a tool to help you create better quality work where you're more informed. It's not replacing the steps of your design process. So yeah, where you can sort of actively use it, making sure you're still reviewing the outputs of the AI suggestions, and really documenting your flow and the information you're creating is going to be the benefit. When it comes to things like research, I think designers can definitely cover a lot more than they used to. UX researchers still have a place in certain businesses, but some of that kind of research synthesis and theming is what's really been supercharged through these tools. So the variety of research can increase, and also maybe the scale of it can, when you have that additional resource. So Lorenzo has mentioned, do you have any useful prompts to share? So yeah, we'll have that in the AI cheat sheet. So after the session, I'll send it out to everyone on this call. So you'll see some prompts around ChatGPT and other tools that you can use. Any other questions? So there's a question on how to deal with team members outside the UX team who think they can now do your role because of the AI tools. Great question. And I think that comes back to the power of, I guess, UX and design. So what I would say is make sure you're very inclusive in your design process. So if it is PMs or stakeholders that are playing with these tools and coming up with concepts, try and create those sessions where you're doing it together. And if they are creating a concept that they think is polished, you can kind of go through the reasons why you need to consider the edge cases. Is there data behind it? What you actually have to do to get this coded sort of quick start into dev ready mode, which is a lot of work, which they might not have known about. So just educating them on, I guess, how ready those designs are to hand over to dev is one learning that will, again, hopefully set them at ease. I think also just telling team members where they can help you. So if it is around doing quick research on markets, on different parts of the product to help you spend more time on design, then I would always advocate for welcoming them in that. And the last part, I think, is engineers. So engineers are your tag team, your tag partner in design. Nothing's going to get released without them. So they are also advocates for clean code, quality code, and consistency. These tools don't do that too well right now. That's why you still need to work closely with kind of custom code and designing everything in Figma. So I just, again, kind of work with them closely there and understand the quality of the output that's still needed when you hand off designs. So it's not just the initial 10%, it's getting to the end. All right. So yeah, last 30 seconds to a minute if anyone else has any other questions. If not, we can finish there. Yeah, feel free to sign up to our newsletter on Crafted as well, and reach out if you have any other questions around AI or anything around career bases. Always happy to help. But yeah, Jana just put a question in here. We'll finish with that. So does this information work at a product company as well? I mean, at a product company, we often have a design system and it doesn't work very well with security of information with AI. So if your question is around inputting, I'm not quite clear on that question, Jana, maybe you can rephrase that. So if your question is around IP and sensitive information, I think that's where you need to have clear governance of what you can share with AI models and ChatGPT and so on. Definitely have a private account. That's step one. But when it comes to design system components and inputting those, that's something that you actually have to do kind of secondary. So you're not actually putting that into the model or the platforms. It's something that the devs will have to do afterwards. So it shouldn't affect the security side of things. That's what I would say there. Question from Marin. So would it be possible to get the recording of this talk? I'm on a road and couldn't pay attention all the time. Of course, yeah, we'll send this recording out to everyone on the call today. That's absolutely fine. Well done for multitasking. Okay. And Jana just mentioned, I mean, using such AI tools as lovable, but at a product company, we often have prototypes of our customers. That's what I mean. Lovable, but at a product company, we often have prototypes of our customers. I'm still not quite sure what you mean by product prototypes of our customers. If you're just talking about if you want to create a prototype to test with users using Lovable, then you're more than welcome to create that and get feedback. If you want to start inputting your own information and data into those prototypes and those models, then there is definitely a sensitivity on data sharing and privacy that you need to go through with your probably data team. But early concepts, if you have general information, they should be fine to validate. When you want to add the detail in, then that should be later on in your own Figma files in your own control environment. So Keith just asked a question around, do you see the title of UX UI designer changing in the near future? There are some roles that are being advertised as AI design engineer. So what are your thoughts? So what we're seeing right now is definitely a reduction in UX research roles. We're seeing a reduction in more junior roles, which is a shame to see, but it is just the reality of the industry. Kind of teams are shrinking in size, but still having sort of product cross-functional teams. The AI design engineer, I think it's interesting how design and product manager role kind of merges, and also, yeah, the engineer side of things. From what I've seen in roles and speaking to hiring managers, the kind of three product squad is not really changing as it stands, which is design, engineer, and product. The smaller the team are, yes, you could have someone that does two of those roles, but it's probably going to be more AI focused around the engineering side, which can automate certain parts, which means the engineering team could reduce in size or become more specialist. We have an AI specific engineer who kind of looks into building models out, improving workflows, and that's how we work at product Brightbook. And we'll go for the last question here. So Minnie's asked, how much does AI affect the role of a content designer, UX writer? Do you feel this path is still worth pursuing? I'm a grad interested in content design. Great question. I would say they're definitely becoming less and less roles out there for this kind of specific, I guess, skill set. What I would do if you're someone that's starting off is try and lean into being as broad as possible, especially the designer. So if you are just in design and creative role, then try and build your skill set for a product designer, of which you are a very strong writer, UX writer. Or maybe you want to go down the line of being a marketing executive or a marketing specialist, where writing content is part of that role, but it is not the whole part of that role. So you might be looking at things like campaigns, looking at creating creative assets, but again, it's increasing your skill set and offering to the business. So what I would say is, yeah, either outskill kind of in marketing or outskill in design. Well, there'll be very hyper-focused UX roles in larger businesses, but I would just say to help yourself, just kind of increase your skill set a little bit wider for the future. Okay, we'll finish up there, guys.